I'll read to you some very not very usual words from the Bible for Christmas Eve, but here we go. Psalm 19. The heavens tell of the glory of God. The skies display his marvelous craftsmanship. Day after day they continue to speak. Night after night they make him known. They speak without a word, a sound or a word. Their voice is silent in the skies, yet their message has gone out to all the earth, and their words to all the world. Well, Christmas. You've got to love Christmas. Christmas. I love Christmas. Starts about October in our hub. We say to Sally year after year, we say, Sally, don't put those decorations up until December. But she will have them up just after the summer holidays. Ah, Christmas. We love Christmas. What does Christmas, what sums up Christmas for you? What makes you feel really Christmas? A drug dealer on the run, I have to say. He looked very shifty, didn't he? Anyway, the thing is, fun though roasting chestnuts on an open fire is, and who hasn't roasted chestnuts on an open fire in their time, it is nothing compared to the truth about Christmas. No matter how much has been added or changed regarding the original event, nothing can surpass that original event. But as we start investigating real Christmas, redeemed Christmas, real Christmas, the thing you come face to face with almost immediately as you start sort of digging down is the strange, well, it's a very strange thing really. It's the central role that astrology plays in the Christmas story. Now, I know you haven't come to church this morning to learn about astrology, but stay with me on this. See, the strange reality is that the stars have always played a very important role in God's plans. They're intended not just as physical objects, stars in the sky, but as signs. So, right back in the first book of the Bible, the book of Genesis, what we read is, then God said, let lights appear in the sky to separate the day from the night. Let them be signs to mark the seasons and the days and the years. And right from the earliest days of creation, the stars were looked to for answers and were given names. So, canst thou bind the sweet influences of Pleiades, or loose the bands of Orion, as Job says? Canst thou bring forth Mazzaroth in his season? Or canst thou guide Arcturus, that is the bear, with his sons? Now, Job, I know it's easy for me to say, right? For Job, Job's the oldest book in the Bible. Obviously, Genesis is about the oldest events, but the actual book that was written first was the book of Job. And it was Job was a real person. He was alive long before the time of Moses. Moses is responsible for the book of Genesis, but he was alive long before then, long before the law was written, or any of the Old Testament was recorded. You've got Job. So all that people knew in Job's time, all that people knew about God and his redemptive plan came from interpreting the celestial bodies, the stars. And it was the heavens that declared the glory of God and told the story of God. In fact, according to a Roman historian, Seth, who was the son of Adam, invented what he calls that peculiar source of wisdom which is concerned with the heavenly bodies and their order. So the stars have always played an important part in the dealings of God with humanity. Most often in the background, but strangely, as we arrive at that first Christmas, the stars, astrology, took center stage. Now that's really strange because at the same time that's true, the Bible also has absolutely no hesitation about condemning the use of astrology. It says, all the advice you receive has made you tired. Where are all your astrologers, those stargazers who make predictions each month? Let them stand up and save you from what the future holds. But they're like straw burning in a fire. They can't save themselves from the flame. You get no help from them at all. Their hearth is no place to sit for warmth. So, how do you reconcile those two conflicting things? And what does that have to do with Christmas? What's it got to do with the price of anything? What's it got to do with Christmas? I hear a voice in the wilderness as this goes out all over the world. That's what we are actually going to investigate this morning. And I promise you that it will expand your sense of wonder and amazement about God. You see, millennia ago, before the rise of Babylon and all the corruption that came with that, was something called the Mazzaroth. Now, the Mazzaroth are the 12 signs of the zodiac that the ancient Jews were well aware of, and those 12 signs told a story, as we'll come to see. The story of God's plan for his creation. God's redemptive plan is written in the stars. But that became corrupted by the Babylonians under the direction of Satan, turning people away from the proclamation of God's drama and onto themselves, substituting a revelation of the glory of God for secret, occult knowledge about themselves. Now, you'll see how this came about in a minute. Whether you want to see how this came about or not is for you to decide, but you will do anyway. The story about the Mazzaroth and how it impacts upon the Christmas story really starts with the strange character in the Bible called Balaam. You might have heard of Balaam. And from Balaam onto a group of people called the Magi. Now, don't tell my grandson this, but actually there aren't three of them. He went into overdrive singing We Three Kings of Orient Are last week, just to check there were three kings. There weren't three of them, and they weren't kings, as we'll come to see. Just don't tell Harvey, because it'll spoil his Christmas. Okay, you might remember that you might be aware that the Israelites had escaped from captivity in Egypt, where they'd been slaves. They crossed the Red Sea, and they're now looking for safe passage to get to the Promised Land. They'd arrived at a place called the Plains of Moab, just by the Jordan River, and the Moabite king, a guy called Balak, in a panic, calls upon a well-known holy man to come and curse the Israelites so that he could then defeat them in battle. So Balaam, this holy man, Balaam, refuses to curse them because he realized God's hand of blessing was on them, and he couldn't curse what God was blessing. But then he revealed something else. As Balaam looks at the Israelites who are camped there, he's given a prophetic glimpse into the future, hundreds and hundreds of years into the future. And he says this, I see him, but not here and now. I perceive him, but far in the distant future, a star will rise from Jacob. A scepter will emerge from Israel. It will crush the heads of Moab's people, cracking the skulls of the people of Sheth. Edom will be taken over, and Seir, its enemy, will be conquered, while Israel marches on in triumph. A ruler will rise in Jacob who will destroy the survivors of Ir. Now, he was seeing something that was not going to occur for, 1,500 years. And he was seeing that out of this nation of people, before his very eyes, would eventually come the Messiah, the Lord, the King of Kings. And that linked to his birth, there would be a star. That star will rise from Jacob. Now, don't forget that, like I was saying a bit earlier, back in Genesis chapter 1, verse 14, it says that stars weren't just lights in the sky, they were signs. Well, this star, Balaam prophesied, would be a sign. Now, tradition has it. Are you still with me? Okay, that's probably good because I'm going on. Tradition has it that Balaam became either one of the initial figures in the group known as the Magi, or even the founder of the Magi. The Magi, like I say, keep this from my grandson, but the Magi were a powerful group of both king makers and those people who understood the significance of the stars in terms of discerning God's plans. Now, Daniel, a few centuries later, Lion's Den Daniel, that one, Daniel became the chief of the Magi. And so he would have taught the Magi all about the Mazzaroth and how Balaam's prophecy foretold that the Mazzaroth, that is God's story foretold in the stars, would point towards the arrival of the Son of God. And so when that star appeared in the night sky, oh, and by the way, it appeared during the month of Virgo, the Virgin. It's the month of September, which is when Jesus was actually born. They were prepared and they recognized that star for what it was. And they traveled to Jerusalem to make inquiries. Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We saw his star as it rose, and we have come to worship him. Not just any star, but the particular star. His star that Balaam had prophesied about all those centuries before. This is it. Now, in between that time and the time of the rise of Babylon, Satan had managed to pervert the Mazzaroth, which was God portraying his glory in the heavens, into a mystical, occult practice of using the stars to focus on us. See, this is the kind of the card trick that Satan's done. It started off being all about God, and he says, oh no, I tell you what, it's all about you, really. It's all about you. And he perverted it into talking about our future and our fate. And the fact is, it is irrelevant. It's a red herring what star sign you were born under. Star signs aren't about you and me. They declare or they illustrate the divine cosmic drama that began to be played out on that first Christmas. The Magi were from a particular faith called the Zoroastrian faith, followers of a person called Zoroaster. They were a monotheistic faith. They believed in one God. And these Zoroastrians, they'd taken a lot of Jewish teaching to heart. And they'd stayed true to the original purpose of the Mazzaroth. And they looked to the stars to learn about God and not about themselves. which is why they have a starring role in this drama that is the birth of Emmanuel, God with us. See, the truth is, the Mazzaroth is the gospel written in the stars. It was revealed and understood centuries before the birth of Christ. The Mazzaroth, which came centuries before the perversion of modern astrology, tells the story of the good news. Now, there are 12 stages to this. You've got to be kidding me. A 12-point sermon this close to Christmas. Are you having a giraffe? Well, I'm just going to pick some of them out. Although there are 12 stages, I'm going to just highlight briefly 4 this morning. Why? Because I sense I'm losing you, some of you, and also because it makes the point, it paints the picture. So, it does show, these points will show that the heavens really do declare the glory of God. When was Jesus, or Yeshua, as his actual name is, when was he born? Well, most likely, like I was saying, in the month of September. Why? Not just so it avoids the Christmas sales, but partly because this is the month that is, as I said earlier, is denoted as Virgo. The virgin shall be with child. Virgo is traditionally pictured as a woman carrying a branch in her right hand and an ear of corn in her left hand. Virgo is Latin for virgin, and in Hebrew the word is Bethula. Now the virgin is of course central to the Christmas story. All right then, the Lord himself will give you a sign. Look, the virgin will conceive a child, she will give birth to a son, and we'll call him Emmanuel, which means God is with us. The sign is the virgin, Virgo. Why is the virgin carrying a branch and an ear of corn? Well, listen to me, O Jeshua the high priest, and all you other priests. You are symbols of things to come. Soon I'm going to bring my servant, the branch. I tell you the truth, unless a kernel of wheat is planted in the soil and dies, it remains alone. But its death will produce many new kernels, a plentiful harvest of new lives. So Jesus Christ, who would be born of a virgin, would be the branch. The prophetic figure identified as the Messiah who would give his life in order that many others would gain true life. So, following on from Virgo comes Libra, the scales. Never mind what it says in Hebrew. Move on. So, humanity has been weighed and found wanting. All have sinned and fallen short of God's glorious standard. But specifically, the motif of scales is used repeatedly in the Bible as a means of highlighting that truth that we have fallen short. For example, in the book of Daniel, tekel means weighed. You have been weighed on the balances and have not measured up. Scales are also used in terms of measuring righteousness. The Lord detests the use of dishonest scales, but he delights in accurate weights. So God writes his intention to hold people in the scales to judge the world. How did the world get into the mess that it's in? Well, that's the subject of the next episode in the Mazzaroth. Scorpio, Satan, the enemy of our souls. But Christ gives us authority over him. Now, this depicts the spiritual battle, with the scorpion seen as being a warlike creature. But like I say, we've been given authority over him. So look, I have given you authority over all the powers of the enemy, and you can walk among snakes and scorpions and crush them. Nothing will injure you. No weapon formed against you will prosper. But we need to recognize that we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, and against evil spirits in the heavenly places. The victory belongs to the Lord, and that is proclaimed by the next sign. Half man, half horse, with the man holding a bow and aiming an arrow. Sagittarius. Christ the conqueror, returning in triumph over his enemies. Now, Mazzaroth boldly declares that Christ is victorious in this cosmic battle. I looked up and saw a white horse standing there. Its rider carried a bow, and a crown was placed on his head. He rode out to win many battles and gain the victory. Now, all of this, the Magi knew. It was all arranged by God to announce the plan of salvation. And it all became real that first Christmas. But, like I say, the Mazzaroth became corrupted through the rise of Eastern religions and through mysticism, but fundamentally through the most enduring and powerful sin of all, the desire to replace God on the throne of our hearts with us. Let's talk about me. The heavens declaring the glory of God became the heavens declaring the future of us. The Mazzaroth is all about God and his plans, but astrology is all about us and what we can expect in our lives. You see the switch that's been made? Super. It's all about the most fundamental sin, the sin of desire, to put ourselves at the center of everything and take God off the throne. But what Satan tried to corrupt, God had greater plans for. You see, Christmas should be understood as an act of redemption. What Satan has corrupted, God has redeemed. Even though Satan's corrupted what was originally the gospel written in the stars, God was still able to redeem and use his original design through the line of Balaam and Daniel and the Magi. Now, why would he bother? Because his word declares that the heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day they pour forth speech. Night after night they reveal knowledge. So should Christians be okay with astrology? No. Niet. 9. Don't do it. Do not go away from this talk hearing that I said it's okay, because it isn't. No. Got that? Super. It's been perverted by Satan to take people's eyes off the truth, and we've got the Bible anyway, and Jesus has come and so on, and Satan's used it to cause people to worship the created rather than the creator. As Paul says in Romans, because they exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshipped and served the creature rather than the creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. But God uses and used all of creation to proclaim the coming of his Son. What was written in the stars from the beginning of time became reality that September in 2 BC, which was Christ's actual birthday. Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We saw his star as it rose, and we have come to worship him. How did they see his star? Because the heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day they pour forth speech. Night after night they reveal knowledge. That is Christmas. The real Christmas. Not the chestnuts roasting Christmas. Or the Rudolph's red-nosed Christmas. Or even trucks owned by well-known fizzy drinks companies Christmas. Those magi got it right. But the thing they got most right, the statement that makes them truly wise men, is what came next. We have come to worship him. We have come, spanned. We have come to worship him. Why don't we pray together on this Christmas as we realize how amazing Christmas actually is. And we can say, along with the Magi, we have come to worship him. The one who was prophesied about. The one whose coming was attached to a particular event. We have seen his star. And we know that the heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. And we have come to worship him. And this morning I pray that we would take this Christmas time as the opportunity to come and worship the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the one who is prophesied about, the one whom the heavens declare. How great is our God.